Hey guys, welcome back to Trekyards. As usual, I'm Captain Foley.
And I am. What are we talking about today, Stuart?
Today we're going to talk about Borg set design, essentially. Let's just sum it up real quick. It's changed a lot since we first saw the Borg and progressed through Voyager and the movies, and now we're on Picard. So we've seen a lot of the inside of cubes and a lot of set decorations for the Borg. So we're going to talk a little about that today and how things have changed.
Yeah, so this was obviously my topic that I brought up and I've done some graphics for. Yeah, hey. Uh, the Borg have always suffered or not suffered by budget, as you can imagine. You can only go so far with any given budget. So in TNG, the art design is what it is. It's fine, you know. In Voyager, then, I think it takes a massive step forward with the vibe, the look, how it integrates everything, and it's certainly eerie. Now, that said, they obviously build standing Borg sets. So once they built them, they use them for years and years and years. And if you look closer, you can see the same corridors, la la la. But they look great, and they're so much more atmospheric than TNG ones. I think that's fair to say. Now, we never get to see Borg in the movies in actual Borg ships. I don't want to compare it to First Contact where they Borgify the Enterprise, because that is a different sort of process and it's also a movie budget. So it's not a fair comparison. So I want to stick with, say, Voyager.
So, I mean, we've mentioned a lot over the years talking about Borg cubes specifically because there's such variation in, discrepancies in sizing and stuff. That some could be older cubes, other ones have assimilated more ships, let's say, and then use those pieces to attach to hence changing the scale of the ship a little bit. And just, different quadrants would have different looking cubes probably, just because of the species they've assimilated. When things look a little different, people complain about it. I'm kind of like, yeah, well, it's the Borg though. Like, not all the cubes have a 19% human complement. They don't have their quotas. They assimilate what they assimilate.
Well, they're tools, aren't they? And they fit to whatever. And yeah, you're absolutely right. We've seen three different, for the tactical cube, three different cube variations. The best of both, the original cube was all, little bits of greebling, of pipes, of, toothpicks all put together. Then the First Contact one was similar but more plated detail and a few lights. And Voyager was much more green lights. It was obviously a digital model with texturing, but it was sort of a combination of pipes and a different feel, all three different feel. We only then kind of saw the inside of Voyager cubes from then on, so we talk about Delta Quadrant cubes. But yeah, if a cube's 150 years old and it's simulating every weekend, and it's adapting and repairing, it's in battle, it's going to be evolving itself. And so yeah, I'm fine with the collective is thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of years old in different variations, and so there might be cubes from the very first era of cubes that have obviously adapted heavily. So that's absolutely fine. So the comparison element is sort of understandable. So my problem, and this is a problem I have with the Picard aesthetic, and we've seen the cube sets bits and pieces throughout the entire season so far, and they've not been interesting, but they're just kind of what they are. In this episode, we basically get a tour, and I've got some pictures here, and if we go to picture 2, this is an example of, a Borg corridor in Picard and in everything else. And instantly, what they've done in Picard is they've built these cubes, which look like the outside. They've obviously 3D printed or just assembled, and they've made obviously several hundred of them, and they're putting them together and creating corridors. The problem is, it looks, for me, incredibly cheap and incredibly basic, and there's very little thought put in. You compare it to something's Voyager corridor, and it's infinitely better detailed. It feels infinitely more Borg, and done on a fraction of the budget. I don't, you know what I mean? Just the detail level is radically different, and yet this is the most expensive Star Trek ever made, with over 8 million an episode. Why do these sets look so cheap?
Devil's advocate a little bit. I gotta say, different parts of the cube would have different appearances. Yeah, you got all the alcoves lined up. We've seen that multiple times. You've seen them walk beside the alcoves. There's different sections on the cube. There's areas that are more restricted or just not as important, which would be a lot simpler, inner junctions and things. So I have no real issue with that. I do appreciate the fact that Picard at least has lights in the floor. makes it more interesting, and as opposed to just rubber mats that you can basically buy anywhere that you see in factories for people to stand on and not die. They're just using those on the floor in a lot of the TNG or Voyager episodes, which is great. The lighting's odd. I don't know if the Romulans changed the lighting specifically. It just hasn't
and that's obviously a disclaimer. It's been 13 years since they've got this cube. Problem is, every single piece of the cube we see has the exact same art design. So I don't for a second buy that they went in and removed all of the plates, all of the detail that makes it Borg. That'd be such a waste of everyone's time. So I don't, it's a big cube. You can't make that leap if every single bit looks, some bits of the cube look one way, fine, but everything looks the same. That's why I say cheap, because it's clearly been redressed. If we go between pictures I've created, picture cube 1, there's a Queen's Chamber. It's the exact same cubes on the wall and ceiling. Picture 2, there's a corridor leading up to it. It's the same generic wall pieces and the ceiling pieces. Picture 3, there's the same reused Romulan set. There's the same floor pieces. There's the same wall pieces. Picture 4, both pieces, it's just a corridor, all the same exact pieces. Picture 5, all the same pieces. Picture 6, it's a CGI matte painting. Picture 7, same pieces. So every single piece of the cube has the same exact reusable, movable, cheap art design. And then again, compare it to Voyager, looks much, much better, and this is the most expensive Star Trek ever made. And they could have made many wall flats like these alcoves that are detail heavy. They move. I don't know why they didn't. It's as if they didn't.
That's odd, because the artifact in this show is very much like a hero ship. It's like somewhere we are a lot. So yeah, and some people are going to argue that, well, we see the walls move, we see them do the, and that's very cool and very neat. But it just doesn't invoke the same feeling. Actually, it's kind of creepier feeling where the walls move in a way, but it doesn't have that Borg feel. So I agree, making some set pieces and including also the movable walls with them would have been the way to go.
Honestly, it should have been both aesthetics. There should have been the movable. Great idea. The fact this cube is ever changing, ever adapting. That's the word. And so you should have walked through these generic. A corridor is these blank pieces. Then you walk into a more central area like this bit, and there's the alcoves on the wall. Because you can see there are alcoves just in corridors. It's not as if they just have racks over racks. The green light makes a big difference. I get they probably turn the green light off, and the strobes are, why would you keep the strobes on? But it loses so much of any aesthetic feel. If this was another sci-fi show, if this was The Expanse, if this was Star Wars, you would not have said this corridor was Borg. It would have been not even in a top 10. Only because we know it's Borg, and it's Star Trek, and it's Hugh. It's not a Borg aesthetic, unfortunately, compared. That said, here's the compressed picture 4. We have 3 examples of the big alcove wall. We have Picard, we have the TNG matte painting, and we have a high-res version of the Voyager CG of all of it. This, I think, did a much better job of. I give them all credit for this.
Looks like it's out of Tron. That's all I'm going to say. The new one looks too Tron-like. I prefer the older style alcoves with the lightning thing behind their heads. That was very much spoke the Borg to me. This new one just seems like Tron.
It's certainly more boring. Again, less money spent, and it's a CGI set extension. You can see several CGI people, the exact same 3D model, relatively close to camera. Four dudes underneath Picard, all the same exact Borg. So I'm assuming that he's had him beam to a stasis place. That there's several thousands of drones still in stasis, and they're just in stasis in their alcoves, which would make sense for these. So I'm assuming that's why it feels more dull, because it's in standby mode. Whereas all the other ones, it was just part of the cube. But I mean, this sort of set especially is the cheapest one to possibly make, because it's the same piece. I mean, once you build one 3D alcove, you set extend, we've got a wall. But at least it does have the same imagery. I just wish there was more detail. I wish, there's even railings in both the Voyager and the TNG one. Why is there no railings on the... I mean, you don't necessarily need railings, because why would they fall down? And I like the moment they say, don't let them fall.
That was why. So they had that moment where they don't want you to fall.
I just find that both the original versions look better, feel better, are more interesting. And again, this is the Voyager CGI for one shot was done on lesser budget than this was, and it feels more done 20 years ago.
Yeah, you show this to anybody that's not that is a Star Trek fan that doesn't know it's from Picard. It doesn't look like a Borg anything. It looks generic sci-fi. We've mentioned that many times with the computer displays and stuff. It has a very generic sci-fi or epic movie or epic sci-fi movie ship vibe, but it does not feel Borg.
And it's hard to also back on picture 3. The left picture on the Borg. If you took away the Borg guy, you would recognize the alcove. That would be the Borg aesthetic. The right hand picture, it also is generic corridor in a sense.
But the color scheme is what gives it that Borg feel.
And as soon as you have it in motion with the strobe lights, you'll be like, oh, that's that's Borg. So it very quickly it links back in. Whereas the top one, none of the elements are shared, and you need at least. They should at least had a couple of alcoves with the spinny thing in the hallway, which is obviously you build one, you build up a mold, and then you move it. Easy. And then I want to talk about the Queen's area, because this one for me is confusing, because they express in it that this is the Queen's chamber. We've seen the Queen's chamber. It's the same set used in Image 0 and a diamond, I believe, on a cube as well. And it's the same set. They built it. It's meant to be expensive. It's meant to be a hero set. For me, this Queen's set is incredibly dull. It's exactly the same as everything else. There's nothing of the Queen's set in it at all. And the central bit, which as it was all coming together, I assumed it'd be like her body alcove would be kind of cool, but it becomes the alien transporter, which is fine. But there's nothing Queen character in there, and I was expecting them to walk in and be like, oh yeah, this is a Queen's room, and it's completely devoid of anything.
No, I agree. There's very much a Queen kind of penthouse or pentroom, penthouse style to the Borg to the Queen's chamber, because she's there all the time. I did mention earlier in another video that sure every Borg cube probably has one of these, but it's not used very often, so it doesn't have to be as elaborate as Unimatrix 0. This one though, with the way that it's presented, with the transporter thing that comes down in the middle of the room, feels very much like a room for a specific purpose, in this case for her to escape. I don't know if there's an adjoining room that we didn't see that might have something more for what you were looking for.
Because where's her control interface? Where's her consoles? Where's anything that the Queen would use?
Because the walls are always changing and stuff, I assume that she can just make one appear if she needs, right? Would be my guess.
But the problem is that makes some sense in universe, but as a viewer, we're watching this.
Oh yes,
and it's not being given to us. And they do spend enough time in this room. Every minute is money. That's what's always the rule. So they've got more hundreds of thousands spent on this scene because they're spending more minutes here. So if they had like an exact replica of the work, because it would have been kind of cool if they had the exact replica of the Queen's middle bit, and you had to stand in that to beam. Can you imagine Picard, who gets a flash of that alcove, the custom Queen alcove, and is like, I don't want to stand in that. That would have been really visceral,
Well, I'll give you the argument that everybody gives for why Discovery's aesthetics were all changed for the interiors. Because you can't go to a show that was 30 or 20 years ago and make it look good these days, because they used cardboard and wood and paper to make their sets. That's, I think, the mentality that a lot of people are going to put in the comments.
Well, the problem is this set looks worse than the 90s set.
Well, it doesn't look worse. It just looks different. But it's fantastic it's a fantastic set for a generic sci-fi movie. I think so.
I mean, all it is the same blocks that they've obviously made several hundred of. They've just stacked them, put some things in between. I mean, it's the cheapest, simplest thing you could do, which is clever in terms of budget saving, but it's just a redress of the existing pieces. I mean, there's been so little thought put in. It's staggering. Now, the middle thing I think is fine. I like it being a tech thing, but I wish they'd said, this is the Queen's escape route. This was room dedicated to this. Fine. Then the room is designed to keep, like, the room is designed to be shielded and turn this thing on, but that's not how it was presented. And Picard's like, oh, I've never been in here, but I remember it. Thereby implying this is what it always looked like. It falls flat, and it's just art design. The Borg art design is not very good, and it was absolutely better in the 90s with less money.
So guys, let us know your thoughts about this. Do you like the new Borg aesthetic? Does it compare to the old one? It's totally different. It's night and day as far as I'm concerned. It's apples and oranges, but
that's why I was going meta with it, because I can't go in universe because it's fine. I
kind of prefer the older style personally, but that's me. But let us know your thoughts down below. And as always, like the video, subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to join. You can join the channel now. Be rank of commander, captain, or admiral. Get some bonus goodies. And if you're follow us regularly for lives, that's a great way to interact and get some extra bonus goodies. So consider doing all those things.
Yes, and of course, just be part of the conversation. That can be in the comments. That can be in our lives, which you do often. Do join in, have fun, and support us financially if you can. Patreon's a great way. One-time donation's a great way. Buying merch is a great way. Using the Trekyards code Trekyards at Eaglemoss is another great way. So many great ways, Stuart. Or just keep watching our great content. We do try.
And don't forget to share if you can too. It's the best, easiest way. So
It's pretty damn easy.
it is. So until next time, guys. I'm Captain Foley.
I'm Connor Hungs. Bye, guys.